Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. My name is Mike DuPhily. I'm the Educational and Outreach Coordinator here at Verteks Consulting. Today we're going to be presenting the Mitel Connect training webinar. This month we'll have Mike DuPhily, my incredibly smart husband, going over end user tips, tricks, and power tools. With that, I'm going to go ahead and pass that over to Mike, and he's going to cover today's content. There you go, Mike.
All right, thanks, Brittany. Thanks, everyone. How you doing? Good to see everyone this afternoon. Again, my name is Mike DuPhily. I'm a senior engineer here with Verteks Consulting. Today, we're just going to be covering some end user tips and tricks. I'll mainly be focusing on the Connect client, but if you do have any other questions, particular things about your own system or any kind of problems or questions you run into personally, feel free to ask them in the chat or questions window. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started here. So, of course, what I'm showing here to everyone is the Mitel Connect client. Yours may look a little different. This is the most recent version of the client. If your system hasn't yet been updated to the most recent version of code, this may look a little different. But basically the functionality in all the versions of the Connect client is substantially similar. Little tour of the interface here, maybe some things you might not have known about. Just looking at the window here, of course we can click this, move it, drag it around. A couple things to note about behavior here right off the bat. If you just click the X here up top, what that's going to do is actually move the Mitel client down here in the system tray, as it's called. So if you do X out of it, you will find it there in the corner by the clock. You can always double click on the icon to bring it back. If you do actually want to completely close it, you do have to go here, right click on its icon in the lower right and choose Exit. Right up top here on the toolbar, menu bar, where it says Connect, you'll notice there's a little arrow to the right there. That means I can click on this. And when you do click on that, it'll bring up a little context menu here where you can see, of course, some information about the software itself, its version. We've got access to the settings window here. I'll just click on this to bring it up, but we'll cover a little more in depth here as we go. Also available here, the show and edit toolbar buttons. A lot of people don't know what these do. I'm just going to go ahead and click and show toolbar here. What the toolbar is in the Connect client is sort of like on your phones, you have programmable buttons. We have a similar sort of idea for the Connect client, that we can have these programmable toolbar buttons that can be available to you in the client for one-touch transfers and things like that, the same kind of things you might be able to do with a programmable button on a phone. It does work a little bit differently in the client. So if I go up here and click on Edit Toolbar, what it's actually going to show me are a list of buttons that your system administrator has published for you to be able to use in the Connect client. So I can't go in and just create my own toolbar buttons here to use in my own client, but I can use buttons that my system admin has published for me. If you're interested in this feature and you want some buttons to use here, or you have some ideas, but you're not sure how to do it, definitely feel free to reach out to us at Verteks. We can program these buttons for you on your system and make them available to your users or to you to use in your client. And again, you can kind of see here, I've got some what we call extension monitor buttons here, where I can see other people's status on the system. A shortcut to some commands here, the unpark command. I've got a transfer to mailbox button. And you'll see here, as I select them, they'll populate here on the toolbar on the side. Personally, I don't really use these buttons for too much. So of course, you can always uncheck the show toolbar button to get that to go away if you see it on yours. We do have an option here to allow the Connect client to stay always on top. Again, that can be useful for you if you're opening and closing the Connect client frequently. And then some really great links here to both the PDF user guide and training videos that Mitel has produced themselves to give you some additional training on the client. Their training videos are sort of organized into smaller bite-sized functional chunks. So I definitely recommend checking these out if you're interested in how to do some particular thing that you might have forgotten about or need a little refresher on. All right. So the rest of the interface here, just under the Connect link up at the top, we've got two items right up top here. The very first one, these 9 dots, is the dial pad. Mainly, this is useful for obviously soft phone users. So if you're using the Connect client as your phone with a headset plugged into your PC, clicking on this dial pad button is how you can enter digits during the call. So if you are on a call and you're interacting with an auto attendant, for example, and you need to enter a digit to move through those menus, this dial pad button will get you access to that. In addition to that, just to the right there, where it says name or number, if I click in there, it'll pop that out to the right. And this is where I can search my directory. So everyone on the system with me in the system directory will have an entry here. In addition, it's going to import for me my Outlook contacts if I have that option enabled, and I'll be able to search through those here as well. So if I were looking for someone on the system, let's say Brittany, I can just start to type that person's name, and it's going to find for me all the matches in the system. You'll notice I've got 2 here for Brittany. The first one here that's showing me a little more information is her actual extension on the system. The center one underneath is an Outlook contact. Depending on how much information is in your Outlook contact, it may or may not be able to merge these 2 together when you're looking at them. But in my case, I don't have enough for it to create that link. But just something to be aware of. If you do see duplicates, chances are one of them is coming from one source, another from a different place. If I did want to call Brittany right now, I can simply double click on her name. If I just go ahead and single click, what it's going to do is, again, pop out another pane here to the right and show me some additional detail. So I can see here extension and email address. I can click here and look at any IM messages, any previous calls I've had with Brittany, and then any voicemails that she sent. So sort of a detailed filtered view where I can just see my interactions with Brittany in the past. If I want to get this to go away, all I have to do is simply click this single line right here, and that's going to minimize that panel and just bring me back to the main interface. And again, if I want to shrink this down, I can just click the X here, and now we'll get back to our regular view. Now, just underneath the main directory search here, I can see my own information. And now that's going to include a little icon that represents me in the system. If you have your LinkedIn integration, I'll talk about that here in a second, enabled and activated, you may even see a picture here that you have your profile photo set to on LinkedIn. Of course, I see my name, my own extension. If I click on my name here, it's again going to pop up another detail view here where I can see some more of my own information. Where it says here, upload picture, like I said, that only really works with a integration we have with LinkedIn. So if you do click on that, what it's going to do is just ask you to sign in with LinkedIn to link it to your profile picture there. If you have that option enabled on your system, you can do that to get a picture there. Underneath my name, an important field here talks about primary assignment. And what that means is, where do I want calls that are destined to me to ring? Generally speaking, you might have 2 or 3 options here. So the first one is going to be desk phone. So if you have a desk phone that your extension is normally assigned to, chances are this is the normal option that your Connect client is set to. With the Connect client in this mode, calls are going to ring to your desk phone, And the Connect client will act as a remote call control application. So the audio will be always handled through your desk phone, and the Connect client is basically acting as a remote control for your phone. Now in the second mode, the one underneath here, soft phone, what that lets me do is actually use the Connect client as my phone. So if you are a remote worker, or maybe you're on the road and you need to actually, let's say, use your laptop like it's your desk phone. I want to turn my computer into my phone. I can select the soft phone option here, and as long as I have some sort of audio input connected to that device, some sort of microphone, then I'll be able to switch to that soft phone mode and use my device as a phone. Obviously, this works best if you have like a USB headset or something like that to connect, but any sort of speakers or mic will do in a pinch. Also, one other thing, you do have to have some sort of connectivity back to your primary network. Generally, this is going to be some sort of VPN or virtual private network. Also, if you have the Edge Gateway appliance deployed in your network, you may be able to connect directly to the Connect client via that Edge Gateway appliance without a VPN. But if you do have some questions, any technical questions about how to use the cell phone feature outside the network, we can also help with that. The final option here, external assignment number, similar to the soft phone option, except now instead of sending my audio through my PC, what I'm going to do is redirect the audio for my calls through another number, usually your cell phone. So what I can do is select external assignment number. I can go ahead and label my number here. I'll say cell. And I'll go ahead and enter a number in there. You'll notice we do have some options underneath here regarding how many rings we want to go to this particular number, and also how we're going to connect, either pressing one or automatically connect. A couple things to note here. The number of rings, if you are using external assignment, and in particular with a cell phone where you have voicemail, this number of rings basically determines if calls ring through to that device, my cell phone in this case. How this is set basically makes a difference in whether or not the person is going to be leaving a voicemail on my cell phone or a voicemail on my work phone. So if you have this number of rings set too high, the cell phone voicemail is going to pick up, usually, let's say, after the 5th ring, right? If I have this set to 6. And then the voicemail is going to be left on my cell phone. If I don't want that to happen, I just need to make sure that this number of rings is set lower than the number of rings it takes for my voicemail to pick up. What's going to happen now is it's going to try to ring my cell for 5 rings. On that 5th ring, it's going to pull the call back into the work phone system, and it's going to present them my work voicemail. So just something to be aware of with the setting here. Also, the one next to it, whether it's going to automatically connect as soon as I answer, or whether I'm going to have to press 1 to connect. Generally speaking, if this is a dedicated phone that you have access to, it's your personal phone, probably automatically connect is going to be fine. But in cases where maybe you want to filter your calls, or if the caller ID coming through to your cell phone isn't always reliable, or maybe always shows the work number, you can't really tell who's calling, then you can use this press 1 to connect to help filter those calls. So once you do enter a number here, you can just hit add. And now, again, my calls are set to ring through to my cell here. So now if anyone calls my work extension, I'll still be able to control and interact with the call through the Connect client here. I'll still be able to do all my transfers, send it to voicemail, everything I can do with my work phone. But the audio is going to be coming through my cell phone. Very handy if, again, you work out of the office occasionally, not all the time, but you want to have some sort of reachability without actually giving people your cell phone number. This external assignment option works great for that. All right, I'm going to set myself back to desk phone here. One last thing underneath there, if you do have the Conference Bridge appliance deployed on your system, you will see, if you have permissions, your permanent conference here. This is what we call a reservation-less conference, basically because it exists all the time, and every user on the system has at least one reservation-less conference assigned to them, and these are the details for that conference, basically your own personal conference bridge. All right, and I don't see any questions or anything so far, so I'll move on here. Continuing on, underneath my name here, you'll notice there's a little thing that says available. If I click that, what this is going to show me is my current availability state. Back when we were ShoreTel, we used to call these call handling modes. And again, this is a feature that's controlled by permissions on the system. And what these allow you to do is control whether or not and how calls reach you, depending on your status. So you'll notice we've got basically 6 of these available to us. We have an available state in a meeting, out of office, on vacation, do not disturb, and custom. So the first 5 here, the names of these we can't change, but we can change the programming. The final one, the one that just says custom, I can actually completely change what the status is called, and also sort of select a color showing, available, busy, or unavailable to the other users on the system. So the 6th one, custom, is the only fully customizable. These others are designed to be used kind of for their intended naming here. What I'm going to do, you'll notice as I hover over each one, you'll see a small blue pencil icon. This is the edit button. So if I hover over one of these and click the edit button, it's going to let me put in an additional note. So again, somebody in the system can see that. You can add a little note there that'll show up. Any changes that I want to make to these states can be done through the settings window. Again, we can get to that up top here through the Connect link. And you can find these states under the call routing section. And just to give you an idea of what we can control through these different states, here in the settings, I'll go through kind of what we can do here. So right up top, you'll notice here, the first thing I can choose is what state. So when I'm available, and I could choose another state if I wanted to edit that. What it's going to do is going to follow the directions I have specified underneath. So currently, when I'm available, incoming calls are going to be routed to my desk phone, which is correct. That's what we want to have happen. This phone is going to simultaneously ring, in this case, my Connect mobile client, but this could be, your cell phone number, a home phone number, something like that, as long as it's another external number. We can't simultaneously ring another internal extension. We do have a limitation there. If I wanted to change that simultaneous ring feature, I can click change here. I can enable it or disable it with the checkbox, and I can select a different set of numbers here. You can choose up to 2 numbers to ring simultaneously. Most people only use 1, but we do have the option for 2. You can see under there, the next one is how many rings before it goes to voicemail. In my case, I have it set to 10. Again, easy to change. I can hit that change button. I can say I'm forwarding the calls to my voicemail after 10 rings. If maybe I didn't want to forward calls to voicemail, again, I can just click right here where it says my voicemail and enter another number. Maybe I have, for instance, someone covering for me on vacation, would be a popular choice. So let's say I'm going to edit my vacation mode. So incoming calls are immediately routed to voicemail in this mode. I'm going to change that. I'm going to forward all my calls to Brittany while I'm on vacation. So I'll select my vacation state. I'm going to say forward the call to Brittany, and I can actually just start to type her name here. And then we'll just say, always forward my calls to Brittany. I don't really care about the number of rings here. I'll just save that. So now when I'm on vacation, or when my extension is set to that vacation state, my calls are immediately going to be routed to Brittany. Of course, we probably don't want to do that. We'll just send those calls to my voicemail instead. But as you can see, very easy to change the programming of these different states, have them do a lot of different things. We can record custom voicemail greetings for any of these states, a very handy feature. You can have a voicemail recording that says I'm in a meeting or I'm out of office, and switch between those recordings just by changing your state on the system. And again, this very easy to use record button here will let you do that. You can choose whether callers are allowed to leave a message. Not an option that's used very often, but in some cases you may just want to leave a recording saying, hey, I'm on vacation, I'm not going to be checking my messages, goodbye. And in that case, you can actually say callers are not going to be able to leave a voicemail. So many different combinations of settings that you can put together with your availability states and the options in the Connect client. One other thing I'll just touch on here up top, you'll notice we've just been dealing in the availability routing section. This is sort of a real power user tool here. There's a second button up here called power routing. These power routing rules, you can think of them as like Outlook rules for phone calls. So let's say I want to create a new rule for call from wife, right? So when the number matches, right? Let's say I put in, Brittany's cell phone number here, right? I'm going to forward that call to my cell all the time to make sure I get it. Or if I'm really mean, I got to say forward to my voicemail. Or if I just want to do a distinctive ring, I can say play ringtone and then choose a different ring on the system so that I have a distinctive ring for her instead. And again, you can see we can put together a lot of different criteria here. So if it's maybe a call from Brittany, but only during business hours or before or after business hours, any sort of scenario you can think of, we might be able to put a power routing rule together to match it. So some really neat things we can do here. All right.
Mike, it sounds like you're going on vacation without me and you're forwarding the calls without me as well. It's interesting. Thanks, honey. Love you.
You're welcome. All right. So, and again, one last thing, the custom mode, again, you can customize the color and status of that mode completely. So also feel free to make use of that one. One other thing that actually comes up from time to time, occasionally people ask us, how do you completely sign out of the Connect client? So, when you do log into it for the first time, there's a remember me checkbox. If you check that, it's going to remember your extension every time you sign back in. Occasionally people need to, unlink their extension from this. The way you do that is actually here under the states. If you click where it says available there, way down at the bottom underneath custom, there is a log out link. So that's how you actually, sign out of the Connect client. Again, usually this is going to be kind of linked to your extension on your PC, but in some cases you have a shared PC or something like that, and this log out link becomes useful. All right. The next section underneath my name and state here, these are sort of the major functions of the application. just to go through them. Again, similar to kind of the same information we can access from the name or number field up top. Here under contacts, this is a place where I can organize the people in our directory in a way that makes sense to me. So, for instance, you can, in the system, designate people in the directory as a favorite. You'll notice they all have a star next to their name here. And the way you do that is through the directory, again, up top where it says name or number. If you wanted to find someone there, for instance, I'll search for Paul. You may or may not be able to see it. Sometimes this has some trouble coming through on a screen share, but there's a small outline of a star here to the right of Paul's name. If I click on that star, it's going to fill in blue. And now he's going to appear on my favorites tab in my contacts. Your favorites tab is just sort of a single one-page display showing you everyone that you've starred in the directory. I am currently looking at this in sort of its large view. One thing to note is that up top, if I go here up into the upper right-hand corner, I've got a few buttons. This one will let me add a new contact manually. This one will change my sort order. And then this final one will actually collapse this into a more compact view here. I think most people prefer looking at it in the compact view mode. But in case you're looking for a way to get a little more real estate here, look in the upper right-hand corner, look for something that might give you a compact view, and that'll definitely help. Looks like we have a question here. Are we able to connect Teams to Mitel and have calls forwarded? Not currently, at least not in the way you're probably thinking of. We'll probably need to plan another webinar specifically to talk about what we can do as far as Teams integration. Currently with Mitel Connect, we really don't have much of anything. You know, this is sort of a roadmap item, putting this out there. There is going to be kind of in not the immediate future, but sort of middle future, hopefully at some point next year, a new client. And that new client is going to have expanded integration capability with a lot of third-party applications. So we're looking forward to that. It's not quite ready yet, but something to look forward to. So we are going to have some better integration there. All right. In contacts, one other thing that we can do here is I've got another tab up top for groups. Groups to me is, I think, a little more useful than favorites. Favorites is really just one group. In my groups tab, I can actually organize people into groupings kind of however I like. So in my case, I have mine organized based on kind of business function. You know, I've got admin, our help desk, sales, techs, training. But you can create your own groups and organize people however you'd like. Again, easy to do that. Just make sure that we're in the groups view here in contacts. I can click my little plus button here. I'll just say add a group. I'm going to call it training 2, the group name. And then right here where it says group members, again, I can just click in there and begin typing. It's going to find matches for me. If I want to add a number that's not a match, all I have to do is type it. Oh, yeah, it's not going to go there. Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm in the groups view. If I wanted to just add a new number that I don't have in, what I can do is actually just go and add that as a contact here manually. Probably because I have my Outlook integration on, what that's going to try to do is launch Outlook. So it may or may not be able to do that here. But with your Outlook integration enabled, you hit add contact. Okay, yeah, that would try to launch Outlook. If it can't do that, it's just going to let me add it here. So this is really useful if you want to add like the restaurants or Pizza Hut. You know, at this time, it's important to make sure everyone's well fed. So you could put in, you know, any number there. And now I've created that contact, and now I can go and add it to my group here. Training, so we'll add Brittany, and we'll add Pizza Hut. All right. So now I can see my new training to group. You'll notice really the great utility of the contacts window here, and these groups in particular. People who are on the system, and I can see the status of their extension, I'll be able to see based on this little colored dot next to their name what their availability is. You know, I can see Brittany's in a meeting here, obviously. The orange dots here mean that person's on the phone. Yeah, you can see Brittany just changed hers to out of office. So you can see a person's status just at a glance without even calling them here in the contacts window. If it's a number that's not on the system, like Pizza Hut here, you'll just have a small gray icon, and that's just letting you know, hey, this is an external number. I don't really know what the status of that person is going to be before you call them. And of course, once you are done with any of these groups, or if you want to edit them, you'll see there's a little slider icon here. This is sort of the edit button. This is going to let me do a few actions here. These aren't always super useful, but I do have my edit group button here, and I can remove people or just delete this group entirely. All right. So underneath our contacts window, we have the recent window. And basically, this is just going to be your call history. So in the recent window, you're going to see all your recent interactions. Generally speaking, these are going to be calls, but IMs and some other things can show up here. It's always organized chronologically, so your most recent stuff is going to appear up top. Older stuff is going to appear towards the bottom. We don't have a way to kind of change this in the current version. Also, we don't have a way to remove things or edit this history. Basically, this is stored server side, and it's just showing you, a view of that history. I can filter, to see either all my interactions or just missed calls. I can also search through this list. Again, it's going to have, a person's name for callers who are in the system in the directory, or it'll have the caller ID information we captured. If they were a wireless caller, you might see this wireless caller here. Incoming calls, whatever we can capture from caller ID, you'll see that here as well. And you can search through the recent history using the search field for that. One other option that we've got here in the far upper right-hand corner, if you do want to analyze this or sort it some different ways, you can export this data. You can choose either today, the last week, or the last month, and that's going to provide a Excel spreadsheet that will contain that call data for you. Let's see, look at that real quick. So here's what you can see from one of those exports, if it'll let me. Yeah, but you can see the date, time, direction, the number, duration. All right, just underneath our recent there, any voicemails, you can interact with your voicemails on the system here. This is sort of a visual voicemail viewer, so I can, play, delete, forward voicemails here. I currently don't have any in my mailbox, but if I did, I'd be able to interact with them here. And again, I can filter to see everything in my mailbox, just stuff that's unheard. Also, I can see any messages that I might have saved. Underneath that, If you do have the option for IM on your system, you'll see your chat messages here. This is going to show you any ongoing conversations. You'll notice here if you want to start a conversation with someone, we just have to search for a contact. Again, we can do that right up top. Then I can start a message with them right here on the Messages tab. And of course, once I can navigate away from there, and I'll be able to come back to Messages and see any conversations I have ongoing. All right. Finally, just under Messages here, the Events tab. Again, you may or may not see this on your system. If you are using the conference bridge, sort of like I talked about up here, when I clicked on my name, I've got this sort of permanent reservationless conference bridge. This is my own personal meeting. If I wanted to schedule some sort of one-off meeting or call, just like you can do with sort of Teams or Zoom, I can go here to Events. I can click New Event, and it prompt me for. This will actually do this the first time you sign in on a particular client. It will prompt you for your Windows credentials to access your mailbox. Yeah. And if I wanted to create a meeting, I can do it right from here. These are going to be, scheduled meetings that are maybe outside of your personal bridge. You can set a date and a time. Some additional information here, and schedule that event. In addition, you can do this through Outlook as well. There are plugins that get installed in Outlook when you're creating a new appointment. You'll have the option to turn this into a Mitel meeting with a button right there in Outlook. And then finally, this last option, this is a new one. And you may not see this if you're not on the very latest version of the Connect client. This is for a new cloud service that Mitel has available called My Team Meetings. This option always shows up in the Connect client, but it's always going to be grayed out and unselectable unless you have that My Team Meetings option enabled on your system. It's basically a sort of a Zoom clone for larger meetings. Works very well. If that's something that you think you might be interested in, obviously we can help talk to you about that. I will say, it is definitely a premium price product. So all right. Last thing here, there's a little arrow down here at the bottom. I can collapse this to just look at icons if I'm not actively on a call. And then finally, if I do want to make a call, let's see if we can make this happen here. For instance, I'm going to try to call just the main auto attendant. And of course, we got no media input here. I can sort of show you. When you are on a call, you'll see any of your active calls that show up there underneath in the corner. And you'll get some information about the current call, some commands. You can see here I can hang up. And also if you wanted to do a transfer conference call, items like that, they're all going to be available to you here in the Connect client as well. Right, and with that, I think we're coming up here towards about 20 minutes till. At this point, I think I'd like to open it up to any questions you guys might have. Do we have any questions or any particular items or things that you guys might want to cover out there? Obviously, we do these kind of live monthly so we can help answer pertinent questions. And it could be anything, it doesn't have to be about the Connect client. Anything that you guys might want to ask about, sort of like Teams integration, future plans.
Got a question here about Mike. This is Don. Can you set a time period for call forwarding? And so that is a great question. You can do that with Outlook integration. So you want to kind of try to show that and talk about the setting a time period for call forwarding, Mike?
Absolutely, yeah. So that's a less commonly used integration, but I will talk about it here. So one of the plugins that is installed along with the Connect client integrates with the Outlook calendar. So besides being able to set conferences up in the Outlook calendar, like I talked about a little while ago, it can integrate with your calendar to control your availability state. And there are a few options associated with that we will talk about here. I'm gonna have to get this signed in correctly. But what it lets us do, I'll filibuster while I'm getting this set up here, is basically for a given appointment on our calendar, we can control what state our phone is going to be in for the duration of that appointment. Getting this to work really well involves changing a default that I'll show you where to get that here in a second. But briefly, kind of overall, if I'm setting up a new appointment in my calendar and the plugin is working correctly, I will see in my Outlook toolbar a Mitel section. And in that section, I'm going to have a drop-down control that's going to let me be able to set the availability state for this appointment. So like James, let's say I'm going to be out of the office, today between 3 to 4. So I can set this appointment, make sure that this state here is set to out of office. And when I, save this or send it along, it's going to put my extension in that state for the duration of this appointment. Now, when this is enabled, by default, it's going to turn itself on for every appointment that's already in your calendar. Most people don't like that because by default, what it's going to do is for every appointment in your calendar, it's just going to mark you as in a meeting. And depending on what your calendar looks like, you might have, maybe like mine, kind of large overlapping chunks of things that last all day. That's, if I let this kind of work the way it works out of the box, it's going to mark me as in a meeting from 8:30 to 5:30 by default. You can change that behavior. It's a little buried, but what you have to do is in Outlook, go to File, and then go to Options. And in the Outlook Options window, you'll navigate to Add-ins. And in the Add-ins window, down here at the bottom, there's a little section that says Manage COM Add-ins. You're going to click Go there. And then that is going to bring up this little window. And if we find ECB, I don't see my options over here. They might have moved this. Let's step up, back up a step here. This looks like they've changed this in the latest Outlook. So I'm going to go back to Options, back to add-ins. Okay, they've moved it right here. So I'm going to select the, let's see, I believe it's going to be this guy, STVM. And hit add-in options. Okay. Nothing there. Yeah, one of these has the option for us to adjust those defaults. Well, rather than just keep adding zeros here, I will find the exact procedure to change that default and get it to you. But the idea is we just don't want the system to automatically put us in a meeting mode for all of our past appointments, anything that was previously set up on the calendar. Yeah, so that can be pretty jarring. It's a frequent source of calls to our phone help desk when systems are first getting set up. People are wondering why in the world their state keeps changing on its own, and it's because of this calendar integration. But this is the way you can control your time period for call forwarding.
So if you can hear me, one of the things, thanks for showing that, Mike. I appreciate that. That's a good explanation. And that Outlook add-in and that Outlook plugin, once it's set up, it works great. I know it looked a little complex, but once you get it going and up and running, it's really good. That said, if you also are an administrator and you're on this call and you're not just an end user and you have a login to Director, in Director at the user level, under the user configuration, there is a schedule mode change in Director, and you can create a custom schedule for a user, and it will change your modes that way. So for those of you that have administrative login permissions, navigate to the user section, choose a user, go to availability states, and at the bottom you'll see a schedule mode change. And right there you can add a schedule and send it kind of wherever you like. So
yeah, just a note on that particular one that is there. You'll only see that change will only switch the mode between available and out of office. So it's actually a kind of another way we can do the schedule mode change, but just a limitation there is it will basically only switch between out of office and available.
That's right. That's right. So yeah, great questions. Yeah, and we'll follow up and make sure you have all the information. Also, a couple of people asked about Teams integration. We're going to do a Teams focused webinar shortly. We'll send everybody an invite to that. We do have multiple Teams integration options, including call to Teams via an app called Qnify, where you can dial in and out of Teams. We have a Teams plugin for the web, and Mitel's already published a Teams plugin for the Fit client from Microsoft, but Microsoft hasn't released it on the store yet. So it is published and available from Mitel, just Microsoft hasn't put it on the Teams store yet. So that'll be out imminently. So all those are available for Teams integration.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Don.
All right, well, I don't see any other questions. I'm glad me and Mike and the rest will stick around for just a bit longer. Anybody's got any questions, either pop them up in the questions or the chat window. We'll monitor both. We'll stay around for another 5 minutes or so to make sure that we answer all your questions. And other than that, we conclude the training for today. Appreciate your participation. Looking forward to seeing you next time. And please feel free to notify any of your team, or especially Robert Hipke, who's been coordinating these. If you can think of topics you'd like covered in future training classes, we'll record this, post it on our YouTube channel, and send out a link on that no later than tomorrow. So thanks for participating. Have a great day. We'll stick around for a bit if you have any questions. Otherwise, we'll talk to you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. I just wanted to remind everybody, like Don said, we do have our next training webinar. It's going to be on Thursday, November 18th at 10 a.m. That one's going to be an admin training. So we'll be focusing on kind of some of the topics that you guys covered today as well that you wanted to go in a little more in depth. But if you want to cover anything outside of the norm, don't hesitate to reach out to me or to Robert Hickey, you guys as client success manager. And that looks like it's it. Still no more questions coming in. So again, thank you, everybody.
All right, we appreciate your participation. We're going to conclude the webinar, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great week.